Commissioner Elson is absent. Commissioner Koenig,
Here.
Commissioner Budeman,
Here.
Commissioner Rose,
Here.
Vice Chair Charlie,
Here.
and Chair Miles.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. We're gonna open time for public comment. Rebecca, do we have any emailed public comments or hands raised on the Zoom? And we have a hand raised here in person.
Do have a hand raised in Zoom, and we have a person, an attendee in the audience who wishes to speak. And let me just add the timer into the meeting. Should be good. You wanted to speak for open time?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, you can
Touch
go
the
to the
microphone?
podium and we'll
Yeah.
turn on the mic.
My name's Linda Verona, and I've lived in Corte Madera for 38 years. About 10 years ago, I tried to get a community garden going, and I had a committee working for 2 years on a beautiful community garden. And after 2 years and presenting to rec committee and the town council, they said no. So interesting to see this map with all this stuff going on, but I don't see a community garden. So anyway, now I'm back for something else. When I've been wandering around town, wandering around the Bay Area, I saw a fit lot in over in Oakland, and it was perfect for the elders, people, because we need more things for the elderly in Corte Madera. And so I did some research, and I saw one in Sausalito. It was a pit. And I thought, nope, it's not going to be a good idea. And then I said, then somebody in my Corte Madera Women's Club knitting group said, there's one near my daughter's house on Fell Street and the Panhandle. So I went over to see that. It was fabulous. There were 6 people on it, and I went around and interviewed each one. One said, I'm here every day. One, and I love it. And you should get the hard exercise equipment all the way down to the very easy and the ones for the handicapped. And another person said, I'm from out of town. I'm going to go back to my community and insist that we get one. So I sent away for a catalog, and they sent me back an estimate. And Tim has that. So I have a list of 8 suggestions for you guys. The fitness lot, an outdoor cement ping pong table, a painted line on existing sidewalks marked for a 1/4 mile, 1/2 mile, with a sign saying the red line is 1/2 a mile or something, so that older people or anybody or kids can run that and say, oh, I ran it twice, so I've ran a whole mile today. A Zumba classes on the basketball court. I went over to the park in Sausalito where I saw that fit lot that I found out why it's a pit, and I'll talk about that in a second. And they had Zumba going on the basketball court, and I thought that'd be great. Community garden, a repair cafe. And I've written about that. And if you go on to repaircafe.org, that would be a fun thing for the recreation department to sponsor. So people can come in and you have volunteers to fix your coffee pot, maybe clothes, all kinds of things.
Linda, I'm sorry, your 3 minutes have expired.
Oh,
Do you
okay.
have something you can email to us or leave with me that I can?
I have.
Okay.
Yep.
So what we will do now is I'll take what you emailed and I'll also upload it as emailed correspondence so that the commission and the public can see your full comments.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you for your ideas. Much appreciated. And there is a community garden recommendation way back in the packet over the Cove School. So I think we'll get to that later on.
Okay. If you'd like to join online, you can join when you get home and then view that presentation online while it's happening. And we have an attendee online with a raised hand. Patty, are you able to unmute yourself?
I am. Thank you, Rebecca. So I sort of wanted to follow up a lot of what Linda was saying. I'm so disappointed that no one has stepped up to be the senior advisor member on the commission. So I'm crossing my fingers that somebody will do that because we need that voice. And all the coordinated weighing in and messaging that went on about the turf for the soccer people is so disproportionate to the 25% of the entire community that is seniors. So I think it's really vital that we foster some getting together because everybody's heard this thing about the isolation is probably equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. If that's true or not, I don't know, but the isolation definitely took its toll during the pandemic and continues because we don't have a place for people to gather. I'm not hearing a lot of needs of seniors for places to gather and variety of activities, so I hope that will come up in your plan. And I love the idea of the custom exercise equipment because movement is the key to staying alive. Just ask Pauline as she was vacuuming her rug. Okay, thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Patty.
Rebecca, do we have any more raised hands or emailed public comment?
We have no additional raised hands, but I just want to check the emailed public comment one more time. We don't have any emailed public comment for open time, just for later in the meeting.
As there are no more public comments, we'll move to close public comment at this time. We also have no presentations today, so we are on to reorganization of the commission and the selection of the chair and the vice chair. At this point, we are open for nominations for chair and vice chair.
Rebecca, did I think you sent an email around just sort of inviting, did folks know this was happening other than in the packet that came out or encouraged to volunteer?
No,
Put you on the spot.
I don't know.
But I guess I just
You mean
did, sorry.
folks on the commission?
Yeah. Because I know we got new folks and I'm not even know if they knew like.
No, we
Yeah.
didn't. It's just annually, you were supposed to do it at the end of the June meeting, and then we didn't because we were going to do it at the July meeting, then we didn't have a July meeting.
Yeah,
So.
okay.
But yes, now we have put you all on the spot.
Now on the spot. So no hard feelings if someone would like to nominate themselves or someone else for chair or vice chair. If there is no one who is interested, I would also nominate Emily to come back as vice chair.
And I would nominate you.
Is the current chair interested in remaining?
I'm happy to remain in the chair. Okay, yeah.
We could talk about like what the
this means.
duties are, like, all these things that maybe you're interested in, right?
I don't know what I'm doing, but I would love to know what the responsibilities are just from background.
Yeah, so chair and vice chair work with Tim sometimes between meetings and making sure we have agenda items set up. So there's the executive advisory committee. We are responsible for maintaining order in the meeting and kind of following the protocol. And
Rough group.
yeah, and making sure everybody's voices are heard.
And then, in the unfortunate event that Alden's not here,
By dinosaurs.
jump in and take the cheat sheet and try not to mess up the order too bad.
It's every year we will reorganize chair and vice chair, reorganize the commission. Did I miss anything important, Rebecca?
You hit all of the important notes.
Well, then I'll nominate Alden to remain as chair.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Excellent. I will nominate Emily as vice chair.
Oh, my.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Excellent. Rebecca, I think we need a vote for that. Yes. So the reorganization of the commission is to maintain the current organization of the commission with myself as chair and Emily as vice chair. Rebecca, please call a vote.
Commissioner Elson, Commissioner Koenig,
Yes.
Commissioner Budeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Rose,
Yes.
Commissioner or Vice Chair Charlie,
Yes.
Chair Miles.
Yes. All right, moving on to the consent calendar. These are items that are routine or have been previously discussed and do not require any further discussion. Any member of the public is welcome to make a comment or pull an item for the consent calendar for further discussion. We'll start by asking if anyone from the commission would like to pull anything from our consent calendar for discussion. No. Are there anyone from the public like to comment on the consent calendar? Do we have any raised hands?
I do not see any raised hands online, and we did not receive any emailed public comments for open time, and I'm seeing no raised hands in the audience.
Excellent. With that, we'll bring it back to the commission for a possible motion. Would anyone like to move to approve the minutes from the June 26th meeting?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Rebecca, can we have a vote, please?
Commissioner Elson, Commissioner Koenig,
Yes.
Commissioner Budeman,
No, go ahead.
Oh, I'm gonna abstain.
Commissioner Budeman abstains. We'll have to have you play with the
Oh,
microphone.
I'm-
It's okay. I didn't give you a tutorial. Commissioner Rose,
Yes.
Vice Chair Charlie,
Yes.
and Chair Miles.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Motion passes.
That gets us to tonight's business items. Tim, take it away. Our first business item is to review and possible recommendation to town council for the redesign of the skate park in town park from Tim Berry, acting Parks and Recreation Director.
Thank you so much and good evening. Basically a little background to talk about skate park and then kind of what our hope is to eventually pass this on to council for approval. So tonight we kind of review the outreach that they've already done, any impact or any suggestions we have before it goes on to council. So the skate park is basically a treasured part of town park. Every day you can see people of all ages using the facilities. The skate park was recently renovated in 2017 for the cost of about $115,000. During the redesign process, staff conducted 2 community workshops to receive input on the redesign of the project. And at that time, there was a skate park fundraising campaign created by community members and local skaters to assist in the costs associated with the project. Earlier this year, town staff was approached by the Scotty Lap Foundation about the possibility of renovating the current skate park. Scotty Lap was a kind, thoughtful, loving, and energetic young man whose life was tragically lost when he passed away in a ski accident in February of 2022. Scotty's family grew up in Marin and he attended Robert High School until the family moved to Tahoe City in 2021. Scotty learned to skate in town park and spent many hours playing soccer and other activities in the park. The Scotty Lap Foundation was created and is dedicated to empowering youth by making skiing, snowboarding, and skateboarding more accessible to underserved communities and assisting athletes in reaching their full potential. The Parks and Rec Commission received a presentation from the Scotty Lap Foundation in May of 2022. May 22nd of 2023. Testing feedback can be found if anybody online would like to see the video, and basically gave staff the go-ahead to start the outreach program to reach out in the community. Staff and Scotty Lap Foundation got work right away. Wednesday, May 31st, we have a community public outreach workshop with skate park where about 70 people attended. The event basically encouraged people to complete an online survey to gain demographic data, support for the improvements, and general feedback of the survey. The survey opened on May 31st and had 141 responses. The results are attached in the packet. The overall results of the survey were most of the skate park users were from Marin and supported improvements to modernize the current facility. Results also show that people would prefer concrete elements, diverse and more challenging features, and an overall upgrade to the facility. The Scotty Lap Foundation then created a second survey focused on the design features of the skate park. The survey was open from July 2nd, 2023, and had approximately 115 responses. Results from the survey were included in the staff report as attachment 2. In summary, the people who completed the survey were mostly the ages between 11 and 20, and live in Corte Madera, Larkspur, Tiburon, Belvedere, Mill Valley, Sausalito, or Marin City. There's a very high interest in this project, with most participants being intermediate or advanced skateboarders who ride every day. The survey has specific questions regarding street features, types of transitions, and quarter pipe features. The data will be incorporated in the upcoming community workshop if approved by commission and on town council. Both surveys were sent to local schools in the area, published on social media. Flyers with QR codes are posted at the skate park, and they were included in our weekly town newsletter. If approved by town council, staff and the foundation will coordinate additional community workshops and outreach with collaboration from California Skate Parks and the Skate Park Project to redesign the skate park. At this time, staff is asking the commission to review the outreach that has been completed to date and consider providing support to forward the redesign of the skate park to the town council. Town council approval will allow staff and the foundation to begin additional community engagement and fundraising. To note, the foundation is offering to cover most of the cost of the redesign project through their fundraising efforts. The goal right now is to raise about 350,000 to revamp the entire skate park.
Thank you, Tim. Before we look for public comment, let's open up for questions from the commission. Tim, I have a couple. One, you mentioned that the Skylab Foundation has offered to pay for most of that, the expense. What do you think would be the associated expense for the town? Or is this public works staff going to be required to kind of supervise and oversee?
I would say maybe changing of fencing needs to be changed. If there's a retaining wall needs to be updated or painted, or some brush needs to be removed. But most of the stuff will be covered by the Skylab. This is all minor stuff that we've already talked to RJ, and Public Works can do it themselves.
And I know there were some questions at a prior meeting about expanding the footprint. Is this still working within the existing footprint, or is there an appetite to expand the footprint?
This is right now the current footprint, obviously in the master plan discussion later, if that changes, but right now it's the current footprint is what they're looking at.
Okay. Other questions from the commission related to skate park?
No questions. I was just glad to see that the amount of folks, the percentage of people that were concerned about this or wanted to go in a different direction was so low. And encompassed in that was the less noise element, which happens to be one of the things they want to modernize. So it's actually a dual purpose of maybe even addressing some of that concern.
What was the mic on?
Nope, not fully, or not.
No, it's on.
Stressed out.
So I think in terms of guidance to staff, I think in folding this into part of the master plan will help the council kind of understand how this plays into it. Having a response for sound, I think we feel pretty good about. I think vandalism is another thing that's going to come up from public concern potentially, which may or may not be misplaced concern, but I think it's a fair question as to what we plan to do given the increased vandalism we've seen at that bathroom. I don't know what options we have or if we can incorporate that as part of the master planning, putting doors and locks on that bathroom in the same way we were thinking about handling vandalism at the new bathroom. Those are my only thoughts as we take this into council from here. All right, and are we looking for a recommendation to town council? Do we need to vote on this? Public action, public comment, sorry, yep, public comment. Thank you very much.
Okay, I am seeing a comment from a raised hand from an in-person attendee, and we have 2 comments online so far. The mic on?
Yeah, green lights. Hi, my name is Angela McInerney. I am on the Scotty Lap Foundation board. I live in Tiburon, and I just wanted to say thank you to everyone and thank you to Tim for working with us and making this move forward. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Angela.
you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we have a raised hand from Patty Stolier. Patty, are you able to unmute?
Yes, thank you, Rebecca. I know that there was talk about putting a camera on the new bathroom. Is there talk of putting a camera on the new skate park, or is there already a camera in that area? That's all.
Thank you, Patty.
Tim, I do not believe there is a camera on skate park currently. And I think the last discussion we had about cameras on the new bathroom was wanting to understand what our obligations were from a town privacy perspective. I'm not sure if we got any comments back from the town lawyer about cameras yet.
I know we are looking at cameras on the restroom facilities. I don't know that the skate park is included in that, but I will find out.
Okay.
Do you know if they're including that, the camera angle that would capture the vicinity of the restroom, if that would capture the skate park? I don't believe it would.
No,
They would need a
they're
separate camera.
adding a camera to the current restroom, but not the new restroom wouldn't catch that camera. Even with the trees gone, it's still too far away to catch that.
Has there been any, forgive me if I'm forgetting, but discussion about why a camera at the skate park might be necessary? I understand there's been vandalism at the bathroom, and so it came up in that context, but what was the context for videography or camera at the skate park? If anybody, if you guys know.
I think it was hoping to defer people from vandalism, I think is all it was, but that was the only reason.
We also have a hand raised from Amy Lapp. Hello, Amy. Are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for putting this on the agenda today. I'm sorry I can't be there. I'm up here in Tahoe. Got to close up our temporary skate park that we have built here in Tahoe City tonight, so I'm on duty. But I wanted to say thank you and let you know that we're really excited about this project. It means a lot to a lot of people, especially a lot of Scotty's friends in Corte Madera. So, and the surrounding areas, the kids at Redwood and kids, teachers, faculty that he went to school with. So it'd be great to have a place to honor him, and we're really excited about it. So if anybody has any questions, Tim can always reach out to us, or we're happy to answer any questions that way. I did want to address the vandalism on the bathroom, which really isn't my department, but I just have a suggestion. I've been working with the Tony Hawk Foundation for the last 1.5 years, and this comes up frequently around skate parks, this discussion. And I think one thing I've noticed since my son has passed away, these kids are incredibly creative. I have always wanted at the Scotty skate park to have an art wall, and perhaps it's a rotating art wall where people could make submissions, and maybe 2 or 3 times a year, the wall could be switched out to a new piece of art. I think art walls, especially something cool that catches kids' eye, will really be a good deterrent for vandalism. But again, this is not my department, but just a suggestion, I think, and it would really brighten the place up. Last time I was there, I think the wall was white, and some color and some art in there might be nice, but just a suggestion. So thank you.
Thank you, Amy. All right, bringing it back to any more public comment? Rebecca?
Oh, another hand was just raised. Let me call on Christina Bosch.
Hi, thank you so much. I just wanted to echo I'm also on the Scotty Lap Foundation board, and I wanted to echo what Angela McInerney, my fellow board member, said. First and foremost, we are so grateful to Tim and to the council. I had the pleasure of meeting you guys in the spring with Amy and was part of the presentation. And since we met with you, we've had so much traction. We've had so much community support. The event that we had for the community forum had almost 100 people from all over Southern Marin. And we're just very, very grateful for the opportunity and the consideration to move forward with this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina.
Okay, I'm not seeing any additional raised hand, but I will just go back to the emailed public comment. And we did not receive any emailed public comments on this item. Thank you.
All right, any more discussion from the commission? I think we should follow the guidance of the lawyers in terms of cameras and what makes sense and what doesn't. I think that we need to balance privacy and effectiveness carefully here, and be open to more creative, less invasive ways to handle things like vandalism, and make sure we're covering the things that we need to cover and not being prematurely punitive.
I think that in a sense, these are sort of 2 separate issues. I think the renovation of the skate park in partnership with the Scotty Lap Foundation is one thing. vandalism is across the park, right? It's across all, and if we're about to talk about all these improvements, it's gonna be an issue. I think it's sort of separate from this. I don't think that the skate park alone is gonna be the,
A vandalism problem.
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't make that assumption. So my perspective, I think whether we support this or not is the question right now, and I certainly support it.
I do too. I've loved every component of interacting with the foundation, Amy, other than crying at a public meeting. Did not enjoy that part, but I love it. I'm in support of it. I think they're very responsive, and I think this is, for me, this is a very easy yes. I also am worried about conflating vandalism at the bathroom with skate parks. I want to be careful not to do that. I love the idea of having a wall, because the line between vandalism and art is really permission and accessibility. And so I'd like to, if that's a possibility, that's something I think it's great to consider. When the time is right, I think considering increasing the footprint is something we've talked about, because I heard, at least some of the meetings, folks wanting to, maybe that didn't know how to skateboard as much, wanted to use like smaller scooters and whatnot, and having that opportunity or whatnot. So I think this is a great thing, and I'm very much in support. Just don't know what you guys need from us then.
Thank you, Commission. Ultimately, we would need a motion and a second and a vote in order to carry this forward to the town council. So I don't know if there's any other comments. If not, we would entertain a motion.
Given the thumbs up, I'm very pleased with the progress that it's been made. Supportive, and I'm ready to move forward if you guys are.
And then I know if you've got questions or anything, well,
I don't really have any questions right now. Yeah,
okay.
but yeah, right, sounds great.
Do we have a motion to move forward with bringing the skate park and the Scotty Lap Foundation's proposal forward to town council? Do we need to stipulate, Rebecca, whether it's part of master plan or separate? Is part of this vote?
No, I don't
Okay.
believe so, because this is talking about just the footprint of the park.
Okay, great.
That would be a council decision.
Beyond that. Okay,
then I'd be delighted to make that motion.
excellent. Do we have a second?
I will second it.
Excellent. Can we have a vote, please, Rebecca?
Commissioner Elson, Commissioner Koenig,
Yes.
Commissioner Budeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Rose,
Yes.
Vice Chair Charlie,
Yes.
and Chair Miles.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes.
All right, Tim, moving on to our second business item, review and possible approval of final draft of the Town of Corte Madera Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Drum roll, please.
Exactly. First of all, I want to say thank you. This has been a long process. I call it a long track relay race is what I feel like. It started a while ago. It's been handed off a couple times. I think we're all excited to see this get to the finish and see some of this really improving. So tonight, recommended actions, receive presentation and discuss the planning and implementation scenarios as presented in the action plan, provide some direction back to staff of the final draft master plan. We'll give a little background and then we'll dive deep into the action plan itself. As the consultants have said, the purpose of the core master plan is to create a document that advises the future of parks and recreation facilities. The master plan serves as a tool for the town to create a vision for the future, identify community infrastructure needs, prioritize projects, and funding allocations, and strategically enhance and develop parks and recreation services. I called late in 2020, the town Parks and Rec Commission began a system-wide Parks and Recreation Master Plan process with the Parks and Rec Department. They engaged in the ETC Institute for collaborating implementation and analysis of a community needs assessment survey, facilitated focus groups, and facilitated public meetings between March 2021 and January of 2022. Out of that came two documents, the ETC survey findings report and the Parks and Recreation Master Plan Executive Summary. Both those in the appendixes, we did not include them because they are very, very large, but they are posted on the website for people to refer to in this document. So that was what I consider leg one. Leg two, the Parks and Rec Department enlisted MAC 5 and RHA consultant team to collaborate in the next phase of evaluation and planning. This scope includes facility conditions assessment, prioritization of identified needs, identification of site and building opportunities, and development of an action plan with associated cost analysis. The analysis and planning include both parks and recreation building facilities to address existing conditions and identify recreation needs. The results of this undertaking are found in the first two sections of the master plan, the inventory and assessment, and the review of the prioritization of needs assessment and opportunities. The third section of the master plan is the planning and implementation scenarios. These scenarios are crafted to provide a framework for the town to pursue short-term facility maintenance and upgrades with a vision towards long-term CIP projects. This process incorporated review and evaluation of previous planning documents for discussion. We considered incorporated relevant aspects of priority work appropriate. They include the following documents: the 2007 Town and Park Community Master Plan, the 2009 General Plan, the current concept planning for Menke Park, the architectural studies for expansion model of a community center, and also the drainage agreements we have for the Larkspur Quarter School District and the Reed School District. Tonight, MAC 5 and RH Landscapes will provide a final draft presentation to the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And the focus on this for really discussions, we really want to focus on this part of really the action plan. It's kind of that last piece that we haven't really got to yet that I think kind of wraps the whole thing together. The action plan, it basically plans and assigns priorities and feasibility to the provided recommendation based on the priority matrix and needs assessment that provides opinions and probable costs. Should resources allow, there's flexibility in the timing and completion of these projects, but basically the action plan assigns each recommendation within one of the following categories. First is near term, kind of first priority projects, potentially achieved in the next 5 years, kind of that low hanging fruit. These projects will immediately address prioritization criteria developed during the townwide park and recreation master process, kind of a near term. Next is medium term, second priority projects, usually within the next 5 to 10 years. These projects will greatly benefit the community. However, their ability to holistically support the existing parks and rec system is slightly less than a near-term park recommendation. So you kind of have that, what can we accomplish in 0 to 5, and what can we accomplish in 5 to 10. Next is long-term, which is third priority projects, potentially achievable in 10 or more years. So big projects that literally are going to take a longer time. And the last is as resources allow, achievable as resources allow to give flexibility in the timing of completion of these projects. Tonight, RHA and MAC 5 will walk us through the updated planning and implementation scenarios, action plan for each of the Corte Madera Parks and Rec facilities. And for me, now this is leg 3. Basic feedback from the commission this time should really focus on an action plan presented to the consultants tonight and any final recommendations or revisions before this document is forwarded to town council for final approval. As always, I have my 2 celebrities. I think Barbara just threw me 3 celebrities who are helping us. They have been invaluable in this process, especially for me who took over kind of mid-range. David Ross, senior project manager of MAC 5, has been the lead and the go-to whenever I have a question or just, hey, David, how does this work? Barbara and Alyssa have always been my sounding board of, hey, how does this make sense? So I explain it to everybody else. We were going to present it last month and it really didn't make sense to me. And I wanted to bring it back so that it made sense to me so I could communicate to any questions I had or to anybody else. Questions for me before David and Alyssa and Barbara kind of hop in. We were kind of going to go over kind of the table of contents and then kind of park by park these action plan items.
I agree with that approach. So the first 2 sections there are repeats. Yeah, so we can jump kind of.
First 2 seconds. I'm going to share my screen really quickly and then can you unmute Barbara and you guys, everybody there?
And then to my question, just as we look at this, the difference between addressing deficiencies and proposed amenities, kind of as we look at these budgets, is addressing deficiencies like our must-do, do those first in completion, or are there things to pick and choose between both lists as we consider this?
David, you want to answer that? You have a better.
Sure. Yeah, I can address that. So the deficiency list is somewhat foundational in just providing very detailed assessments of the existing facilities because, and what we do with that is we generally turn that over to Public Works, and Public Works kind of makes decisions about when best to pursue resolution of any outstanding issues. We suggest priorities of priority 1, 2, and 3 for the items in the deficiency list, but the deficiency list isn't really the heart of the master plan. It's almost a while you're at it resource. The master plan is really geared toward expanding and developing new program elements and improving the parks and improving the buildings. And the deficiency list is a resource to see what can be accomplished while you're doing that, and what are needs of these facilities, both parks and buildings, that should be addressed with any improvement projects. So any improvement projects under the master plan are terrific opportunities to also address deficiency items as part of projects. It's a really efficient way to do it. And also as a look ahead, because as Public Works prioritizes some of the addressing some of the deficiencies, they may opt to defer some items if there are pending master plan improvements that would actually address those issues, or potentially even make them obsolete and render them obsolete. If an improvement project would, for instance, eliminate a condition that is currently not in compliance, no reason to quickly improve it just to remove it with a master plan project. So it is a tool for Public Works primarily. I think most folks would get lost in the details of it, but it is a terrific resource, including the costs that should be incorporated moving forward. And Public Works will likely implement some of this under their current maintenance program, some of that with capital improvement projects, and some of them with major master plan renovation and improvement projects down the road. So it's again, it's a tool for Public Works.
And Tim, has Public Works been involved thus far?
Yes.
So they are aware of all these deficiencies and agree on this. Okay. Great.
So David, do you want to bring up the screen of the kind of the table of contents, and then we'll kind of skip ahead to park by park or facility by facility? Is that helpful?
Yeah, I think we can kind of use the table of contents to just do a brief overview of the steps taken to date, just to remind everyone. But this kind of work is foundational in that even before MAC5 and RHAA were brought on board, the initial needs assessment work was actually accomplished with Ashley and the Parks and Rec staff and commission. So once we came on board, the needs assessment and the survey work was complete, and we began our scope with the detailed inventories and assessments of the facilities. Those have been presented at previous commission meetings and council meetings and discussed extensively with staff. And based on that, we moved forward with the prioritization of the needs assessment and the opportunities, the program opportunities. And we created, if you remember, the prioritization matrix and the opportunities matrix that really kind of identified and guided us in terms of what program elements scored highly in the survey, where the best where they scored in an internal scoring of those elements, and where were the best opportunities within the park system to accommodate and provide additional program elements or enhance existing program elements. And that leads us to the next phase, which we're talking about here, which is the planning and implementation scenarios. I'm going to let Alyssa kind of talk briefly about that as we walk through this, because I'm going to just let you know that the parks really end up driving the master plan implementation scenarios. My responsibility was to kind of bring the buildings along for the ride and do some specific analysis of some of the building opportunities at community center and at the current Petco facility and some of the restroom needs. But in terms of the time frame of the master plan and the implementation at the near term, midterm, and long-term improvements, the buildings will find their home and their likely implementation really depending on those opportunities and funding available, because funding unfortunately is a real driver on the buildings because they're typically larger scale development opportunities. And so we're not going to try and tell you when to remodel the community center. We're going to identify what it could accomplish, and we're going to identify how much we think it's going to cost. But I think some of those decisions are really going to be driven by funding opportunities. Alyssa, do you want to just walk them through a little bit of the planning and implementation scenarios?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, David. So as David mentioned, all of the work that we have done prior, including the inventory and assessment, as well as reviewing the needs assessment that was completed prior to our involvement with the project, this has really all come together to form what we call the action plan. And so This action plan and the planning and implementation scenarios, it's comprised of 3 components. The first is our series of recommendations. So what we've broken down for you is park by park. We have a list of recommendations for what we've seen and what we've heard from the community feedback for what we recommend for the future of these parks. Accompanying those are high-level planning diagrams. And I do want to point out that these diagrams are not meant to be a specific site design. That is something that once you decide to undertake a recommendation that you'll have to do further work on. Just it's really there so that we can get a sense of what could actually fit within your parks and start to think about what the future goals can be from these recommendations. And then finally, the action plan itself, for each of the recommendations that we have, we've assigned a cost as possible. For the recommendations that involve policy, of course, we have not assigned a cost, but each of those have been paired. We've taken a look at these costs and thought about what the priorities really are, and what, as Tim mentioned earlier, could be more low-hanging fruit. And so that's what we've put together as an action plan. It's really the combination of what is the cost that we have and when do we see this happening. So for this page that you're seeing right now, on the left-hand side, you can see just we've categorized the near term, medium term, long term, and as resources allow, which Tim already outlined for you. But we also are including with each recommendation what the different types are. And so existing amenities, these are amenities that exist in the parks, they're well used and they're well loved, and we have no intention of proposing that you take them out. In terms of addressing deficiencies, these are something that we've identified as a deficiency. The proposed amenities, this has come from either a suggestion from community input, or it's something that we've seen that could really help kind of boost one of the goals that has come from any of your prior documents, including the town plan, including the town park plan that were both created in 2009 and 2007. And then finally, policy, these are just recommendations for policies and programs that will support the town's goals. But let's go ahead, and if there aren't any questions, it will probably make more sense once we really start to go through everything. So we can take a look at, I believe Granada Park is next. Okay, so you've started with the action plan. So you'll see here that for Town Park, as we outlined, we do have existing amenities that we have shown, including, the baseball field, soccer fields, tennis courts, basketball courts, horseshoe pits, skate park, picnic areas, the park plaza, and events programming that already exists, including the 4th of July, summer concert series, etc. Moving on, we do know that rehabilitation of the athletic fields is a significant ask that has been taken from the community. And so this is something that we identified as a deficiency. And we're showing here, we've split these into, I believe, the east and west athletic fields. The east is on the prior page. And then the west, as well as the softball athletic fields, including grading. So it is our recommendation that you address those within the medium term. Next, we have looking at, yeah, go ahead. There's a variety of, sorry, actually, Tim, can you go back? I wanted to touch on a few points that were on the previous page. Thank you. We are looking at, around the understory at the skate park and picnic area A. This is picnic area A has been defined previously in your town's sort of, what is it, registration and reservation plan. So that's, you can see that when we have our diagram. We're also looking at, for the asphalt paving that's in the park, repairing the paving as needed, and considering replacement of the asphalt with asphalt. We looked a lot at your playground, including replacing children's picnic tables, as well as adding in some adult-sized tables into the picnic area that's at the playground in order to have a place for parents to sit while the children play. We're also taking a look at the ball wall and what we can do to really utilize that space. So repairing and or replacing paving at the ball wall. This is also an area where we could consider an alternative amenity. If you'll go to the next slide, please. This is something that we found in multiple parks, but it is very true, especially at the tennis courts. Some of the signage that is currently existing, it's either a laminated piece of paper or it is a sign that's reaching the end of its life cycle. So that is something that we suggest addressing in the near term. We are also suggesting that you update the picnic areas, including adding a paved path for ADA compliant access, which is something that we did notice it's very important to continue to provide ADA compliant picnic areas. One big section is we recommend considering options to improve the town park, the dog park drainage, and handle the contaminated runoff from that area. With the mulch that you have there, it does create a bit of a mess, especially when it rains. And so looking at either potentially adding a sump or a treatment swale could help the existing dog park drainage. Another thing is we do understand that there are some trees that have been recently removed from picnic area B in Town Park. And so as part of this, we do recommend developing a replanting plan. This is something that we highly recommend considering developing this plan as part of a townwide tree assessment plan. This is something that within the action plan that we present, there's a section in the larger document that talks about general overall notes. And so we go into a little bit more detail about what a townwide tree assessment plan is. As far as proposed amenities go, there are some that you'll see in every park. This includes adding benches as part of your town's memorial bench program. It's a really lovely program that also allows for more seating areas, which is something that we understand you would like to see. We do know that there is already a sign at Menke Park. It's a lovely new design sign. And so one of our overall recommendations is to determine the appropriate size, position, and material for a park name sign at each of your parks. One other recommendation that we have is to think about your existing playground at Town Park and looking at options to make it all inclusive. So not just accessible for wheelchairs, but also considering children's of all kinds of physical and mental abilities. This is something that has gained popularity across a few different towns across the nation, and we're hoping to see it really ramp up. It could be a really wonderful opportunity for Corte Madera to provide that. Next slide, please. A larger thing that we're looking at too is the potential to add new pickleball facilities. There's an option to either add new facilities or also to retrofit the existing tennis court facilities by striping the courts for pickleball. We also read that there is a call for bocce ball courts. So there are areas in Town Park where we've identified a potential bocce ball court. As well as the accompanying seating and patio space that could make that a really lovely space to play bocce ball. We recommend continuing with efforts to add a restroom at the Eastman parking lot, but we also recommend that you consider opportunities for additional restrooms throughout Town Park. We do know that you have there are several picnic areas in Town Park, but none of them are covered. So this is a good opportunity to provide a covered pavilion or picnic area for either reservations or for first come, first serve use. The west entrance, so it's at the corner of Pixley and Tamalpais. We recommend just redesigning it as more of a formal gateway and entrance to the park. And so this is something that would require a little bit more thought if you were to undertake this recommendation. But this is a really good chance to have just another really solid entrance, especially if you're coming from that direction from the downtown and Menke Park area. One recommendation that we have is, and this is an as funding allows. So some of these you'll see as we kind of go through them, they're a mix of near term and medium term. We have organized them based on categories of deficiencies, proposed amenities, etc. And so entering the kind of as funding allows, there is the opportunity to provide more parking by reducing the median along Pixley Avenue that's at the parking lot. So if you were to remove the picnic areas that are there, you can plant an additional row of trees to add a noise buffer on the Pixley side, as well as create a bioretention area for collecting extra stormwater. But what this would also do is increase your ability to add parking spaces in this area. If you go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So this is something that we heard earlier in this session. One recommendation we have for Town Park is to consider adding an outdoor fitness area. And so this is something that we have put in just sort of a general bucket of costs, but if it is something that the town wants to undertake, it could be a really wonderful amenity for just citizens of all ages.
Alyssa, why are there 2 line items here?
So you'll see there's for areas such as the outdoor fitness area, we've priced them out so that one is for equipment and one is for just for the surrounding area, so paving, etc. I do see that that's not clear, so I'll make a note to make that clearer in our final draft.
So it's not an either or, it's an and, those 2
It's an
together.
and, correct. So the next few are really as funding allows. And so this is something David mentioned earlier, with the possibility of creating a new community center also comes the possibility of creating a new community center patio. And so this is really contingent upon the community center expansion. And so there are 4 different line items, and these include a new patio, additional furniture, as well as I believe retaining walls in the surrounding area. So it looks like this is something that needs to be updated to really reflect what each of those items are. And so a long-term goal, the next one is building a new plaza or event space to the north of the community center. This is not necessarily contingent upon a community center expansion, but this is an opportunity to address the need for space to hold your 4th of July event, as well as some of the other summer events that you have. This could also potentially turn into just a multi-use space for other community events as you see fit. The next item is expanding the plaza outside of Cafe Verde, just to connect with 508 Tamalpais. This is contingent upon a recommendation we have that's a refurbish of the 508 Tamalpais building. If you go to the next slide, please. And so those costs would be with the building costs that David has provided. You can see here, we also have the first point is site furnishings for a plaza extension. This would be as funding allows. We considered a bucket of funding for that, as well as creating a path that would connect 508 Tamalpais with the existing path to the East Community Center parking lot. And this would really start to join and make a connection between Town Park, between the existing community center, as well as the Corte Madera Center that's next door. Part of this would include the next point, which is creating a crosswalk across Eastman parking lot, just to connect the new plaza event space to 508 Tamalpais. Our other recommendations include improving parking at Corte Madera Center and potentially creating an entryway from that parking lot into the east side of the park. So the 3 bullet points that you see here are all surrounding that particular recommendation of creating a pathway from the parking lot to the pathway in the park. And then also considering opportunities to activate the Town Park Plaza, just to encourage community gathering and community engagement opportunities. So that could be, this here we haven't necessarily assigned a cost to because it's more of a recommendation for programming. And then finally, we have, and you'll see these policy points at in the other parks as well, but upgrading the irrigation system to more water efficient types of irrigation where appropriate, as well as decreasing the overall amount of of turf where appropriate. This could include either permeable paving or new planting to incorporate waterwise and native plants. But the idea behind this bullet is to decrease the amount of turf because of the amount of water that it does take. So Tim, is the high level diagram next to this slide, or?
No, I have to go back and find it. It just has the Menke Park as the next one.
I see. Okay. So do you have any questions on the Town Park recommendations that we have?
Alyssa, it would be helpful, I appreciate you going through each line item. I think it would be helpful, especially as we start to try and consider this, is seeing the expenses grouped by like near term, medium, long term. In a way that we could start to see it. I'm, furiously trying to do this math in my head of what we're proposing for Town Park. Kind of how much we're budgeting. Because I think as we go through this, it's not going to be clear how much we have and where we're investing in. Are we going to be needing to make trade-offs between Town Park and Minky Park and the various opportunities? And that's not super obvious to me yet. I don't know if that's a possible follow-up, but it would be helpful to see that.
Understood. Yes, that is something that Tim communicated before the meeting. It is something in my notes. I do have, I've started to put together, as you've mentioned, grouping them by near term, medium term, and long term, and per park, so that you can see. Right now, I can tell you, and I can share this after, if I formalize it a little bit more after the meeting. But right now, the near term Town Park improvements, you're looking at about $1.4 million. That's just near term, which also includes ongoing. Medium term, that bumps you up to just below 3 million. And then between long term and as funding allows, this is all just for Town Park, you're looking at over 700,000.
Would it be helpful if I brought up the map for the Town Park?
It would be I think good to talk to you, but also if all the commissioners have it as part of their pack, it's really more of a visual. It might just be better for us to continue discussing the recommendations.
Okay.
So
But I
actually,
can
before we do that, it would help me, maybe
Right.
any other commissioners, is I'm still not clear what the deliverable at the end of this will be from us. Like, this is obviously well-developed and thoughtful. And if I had a magic wand and all the money, I'd be like, yes, please. But we don't. So I'm still not quite sure is, what we have budgeted for. Are we saying like, yes to all deficiencies because they need to be cured? And then after that, this is how we would prioritize. I'm still not clear on what is going to be the ask at the end of the presentation from us, and that would help me orient so I have better questions than others depending on what you guys need from us at the end. Does everybody else know what is necessary? Is this just me that doesn't know? It might be.
I would love that same kind of, I echo some of the comments, especially as someone new, just understanding at a high level, how does the total budget break out by park and by priority would be helpful. I think similar to what remind me your name, Alden.
Yes.
I think if it's organized by time frame, that's also helpful. Just because I'm thinking about it in terms of, I think you had said we're trying to organize this by the priorities of the feedback we got. So I think it helps me to think about it that way in terms of what are we trying to do in the next 5 years versus what are we trying to do in the next 10 years. So maybe it's just giving us some rolled up executive summary kind of numbers versus a long list. If that's possible. I'm also not so in depth where I feel like I know all of these things that currently exist. So I don't know how, maybe a lot of this stuff was already done. So I don't want to backtrack, but it's also trying to see picture. I love all the pictures, but understanding this is what it looks like today and almost pointing out what is trying to be fixed, like upgraded or brand new.
You're definitely in a hard spot because intimate knowledge of the parks is very helpful. Obviously, we've lived it or been through this process for a year and a half now. So I think going back and seeing when they did their original assessment of everything that was at the parks will be helpful to see here's why they recommended this either in near term, long term, or as funding allows. And then it's still going to be what can be accomplished and what is funding allowed to do these projects and what's the priority. I think that they've kind of given from feedback from staff and feedback from the surveys, hey, this is something that should be done near term. From the community. Now, when that goes to town council, it's a different discussion, but that's at least, hey, this is what we've compiled from all the feedback and all the surveys they've done, and this is why it's important, at least for every park. And obviously, the bigger parks of the town park and the Menke are the ones that are probably top of the list of most passionate for people in the community.
Then what do you need from us at the end of this? Is it a per park or per assessment? I mean, is this a, hey, so addresses deficiencies, some of these, you know, medium term, what like deficiencies and what, wait, if they're accessible deficiencies, is that a like, those just need to be done and this is how much they're going to cost? What do we have left on that park? Nothing. Great, move on. I mean, I'm still really unclear about what is going to be asked of us and I want to be helpful. I mean, this is so lovely and really like you guys have done so much work and I've seen as it's grown and the recommendations and I get it all, but now rubber meets the road. What do you need from us?
Maybe I can be helpful here. I'm
David.
so at a master plan level, it's really creating a framework. This is not approving projects or budgets or costs. This is really establishing a broad framework of which the staff can come back and discuss implementation components with you. There's no way in the world you're going to send this entire master plan out for a bid and start construction tomorrow. This is 100,000 foot analysis long before you actually even begin to what we call scope projects, where you look at pieces of this and what you want to move forward with in terms of delivering them. So this is really the broad brush overview of all parks and all needs that were expressed by the community, and giving you enough information to discuss it in much more detail as you actually consider projects to move forward. And it may well be done by park, where you really then look at each park and you say, what were the near-term recommendations? How much would that cost? And this information, actually, this report will give you that information when you need it. You can look and say, what were those recommendations for near term? How much are those costs? You actually have the breakdown of those costs, so you can start to look at them and say, you know, we really can't afford to do that piece, but we can do all these pieces. And the staff can work to scope a project to move into detailed design on a park project. So this isn't detailed design. This isn't establishing budget even, because we were not given a budget. We're really just identifying the needs, the recommendations on addressing those needs, and identifying the potential costs with that. So we're not saying all this work needs to be done, but this is what we heard, and this is what we're reporting back in as much detail as we can to give you guys the tools to put projects together. And so that isn't happening tonight, and that's not what you're approving. You're not approving any specific delivery of projects at this point.
What are we being asked to do?
Yeah.
You're being asked to review this framework.
So David, I think that what we're getting at is, in this meeting tonight, Tim, you're looking for us to give guidance on how to take this to town council, correct?
Take it to town council as a master plan, not as a specific project, and not a delivery, and not a budget.
Toolbox of options to consider as funding is available. And then ultimately with this toolbox that has lists of deficiencies and opportunities and amenities, then council will ultimately make funding decisions. And the commission, through your annual wish list and opportunities, basically, as we go through addressing projects and opportunities with these ballpark costs, the commission and then ultimately the council needs to prioritize through the annual budgeting process. So what to hit and when.
Okay, so
and they're likely to request that staff come back with proposed projects.
So if I play this back, we have a giant wish list here that is somewhat allocated into near, medium, and long term. We don't necessarily need to rationalize any of those today. What we'll do is we'll send this to town council. They will see how amazing this appetite of things are. They will write us a giant blank check, for which at that point we come back and we start talking about how to prioritize these things. I guess you don't need us to prioritize near term. At some point we will need to do that.
Yeah, and a lot of times it is driven by funding. The council may well say, you know, we could stomach 2 million this year.
Yeah, figure out where you want to spend it.
And what could we do with 2 million? And then the staff can use this as the tool to tell them.
Okay, so at this point, we don't need to prioritize anything. We just need to make sure. So I
You
think.
do need to let us know if anything is missing. If
Correct.
there's
Yes. So the feedback that you've been giving is incredibly helpful for the
If
next.
there's a component that
process.
doesn't make any sense, and
Yeah.
why are we thinking about doing something like that?
I think that, yeah, so seeing the medium term, near term kind of summarized for council, the town council will be helpful. And then I know that we don't really want to talk about the buildings, but that's going to be a really clear question of like, if we're talking about appetite for spend, we need to talk about what a new community center would cost. We need to have a rough idea.
Yeah, and that information is in here.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I guess my takeaway is our job is to figure out if this is comprehensive.
Yep.
For us tonight.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's the deliverable that we
Yes.
get. Okay, so we're not saying to town council, we like this, don't.
Like
do-"
this and
It's
do
like,
that. Mhm.
this is a good and comprehensive
Yeah.
report. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Okay.
Okay, yeah.
I just wasn't sure if I needed to be like,
Is there less pressure now? Is there less?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not approving a
Yes,
a
I
If I
bocce
can
ball court
prioritize
yet.
this in the next couple
Yeah.
hours.
Yes.
Oh, yes, the
that's-
suggestion about the offering another view of the different near-term, long-term as funding allows with the funding, that would also be helpful for this next phase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
Great.
addition to the way it's currently presented by Park, there's just, that would allow for another view to help the council analyze what's being proposed.
Yeah.
And it ultimately helps make the toolbox a stronger toolbox.
Perfect. Okay.
Can I ask one more question before we move on? I'm just curious if when when the proposed amenities start after the deficiencies, are these listed in the order of community priority that we gathered through all of our surveys and outreach, or are they just sort of randomly listed?
They're randomly listed because there is a matrix that shows how they scored. And that document was presented at a previous session.
Okay.
And it's been gone through pretty carefully with staff, and there is a document that does kind of rank and show actually how they scored on how the scoring worked, and you know, what was the basis and how they scored. So that's another tool in your toolkit, is the priority matrix.
It
There's
is in
also a
the
matrix that
appendices.
identifies the best opportunities, best locations for each of these elements.
Yeah, I remember that. That was helpful. Before, and now I feel much more calmer about looking at this. But before I forget, one other feedback for the toolbox is that when I see the words addresses deficiencies, I wasn't sure if that meant like a deficiency, a legal deficiency, again, like ADA, or just there's something, you know, we see a problem. Those are two different things. And so it might be helpful because my guess is town council is going to be needing to focus, and will focus on ADA compliance as soon as this comes to light. It might be helpful to carve that out as its own either category or however you might address it is its own subcategory of deficiency.
And then last thought, Tim, on the town park, I think we should, if we want to expand the skate park, or even kind of put that in there right now, it's just showing as existing as opposed to the proposed renovation. So I feel like we could put that in there and make a note that we have funding sources for that. And also, I believe we have funding for the new bathroom that's right there, that's planned for the parking lot. So it may be helpful as we put these things together to say, this we've already got funding for, or we've already been approved on. So they don't think they're having to reassess those pieces.
Good point. Alyssa, we're not carrying the cost of that, the restroom that there has already been approved and moving forward, are we?
I'd have to take another look at it. I do remember in our meeting with RJ, he had thrown out some numbers, but I'm not sure if that one was part of it. So we'll
Okay,
take a look
double
at that.
check that, because we
Yeah.
need to be clear on that one, because that could come up, and it, yeah, we need to confirm with Tim whether we want to carry that cost here, or whether we want to say that it's already approved and in moving forward, so we wouldn't carry that cost here.
And David, I just wanted to reiterate what you said previously about ADA efficiencies. You wouldn't have a list of ADA efficiencies that you would attack right off the bat. The upgrade of the ADA efficiencies would happen with specific projects, as you know, like with the new community center.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Barbara. There, I think I've said this before, but accessibility requirements and ADA are building code requirements and are predominantly addressed while you're constructing or while you're making improvements. So that when you're making improvements, you are prioritizing addressing ADA deficiencies along with all of the other improvements. That said, they are a high priority because it's also a law. So we do emphasize the accessibility, but it's pretty standard that they get addressed when other improvements are made. And one of the things you don't want to do is go out and address all the ADA deficiencies on their own, because in all likelihood, some of the projects that you may end up doing under this master plan may be addressing those differently than you would as standalone projects, because they may do it as part of an improvement project, or they may be actually making existing ADA deficiencies obsolete and no longer issues based on the way that the renovation project might be designed. So this is where you work with Public Works and their deficiency list to see how you can integrate and economize improvements so that you're only addressing the deficiencies that are need to be addressed with each project, and you don't spend money addressing them in the short term when a near-term project may address them differently. So it is something that the staff needs to, be careful about as they move forward. But that's what we call project scoping, and that's kind of the next steps in implementation, is actually figuring out which projects are likely to be moving forward and what deficiencies can be addressed with those projects most economically.
Okay. Any more questions on Town Park?
Thanks very much.
All right. My last point of feedback, we should put these in order of most important in the presentation for council, and do, like, if it's Town Park, the first one, have it be the first thing, and do pictures and then numbers and then pictures and then numbers, like that.
Like all,
Yeah, so I'd be like
all of the town park material. in
Town
one.
Park, like
Yeah.
1, 2, and then the data on Town Park, right? Just by order of recognition. So where do we want to go to Minky next, Tim? Is that
Yep. Okay.
cool?
That's a fair point, because I've got this list in front of me and then I want to find
Pictures. and-
picture.
Mhm.
for Minky.
Tim, do you want me to share the picture briefly so people can see it?
What page is it on, Alton?
Too old and blind.
66 is the
I have to
picture
get
of
it in
me.
front of
66 in the original presentation, the
84 is the cost page. All right. Alyssa, give us the highlights on Minky.
All right. So for the existing amenities, there are just several things that we recommend keeping, including just the events program that you already have, as well as, of course, Piccolo Pavilion and the seating areas that are used. And then you also have a lot of wonderful historic and educational signage that's at the park. So those are all wonderful things that we recommend keeping. The rest of the recommendations fall in line with thinking about this as an event space, as well as a park that everybody can use. So with that, we recommend, removing and thinning vegetation, redesigning the pathways to comply with ADA standards. And so one thing you're going to see is specifically on the Menke Park list, several of these recommendations have asterisks. So redesigning pathways to comply with ADA standards is one of them. The asterisk indicates that this is part of something that has already been recommended. The Corte Madera Community Foundation did propose a plan for Menke Park. And so we wanted to indicate on our recommendations where we have overlap with what they have already recommended. And so that's what that asterisk is. We also recommend there's an existing staircase that connects the lower and upper levels of the park. It does need repair, so we recommend a replacement of it, as well as considering replacing the surface treatment of the paving to better accommodate accessibility. And so that would be replacing the asphalt with concrete. Also looking into repainting the pavilion. Adding benches, this is something I mentioned you'll see at every park. If you could go to the next slide, please, Tim. So all of the parks have a note about signage and a recommendation about determining proper sizing for the signage. There is already an old Corte Madera square sign at Menke Park, so this recommendation is to determine whether or not you need an additional sign. There is an existing Menke Park sign, so it's I think up to the town to decide. But then also just continuing to pursue plans just to upgrade the park, just ensuring that all accessibility codes are met. And this includes creating additional pathways, additional seating space, etc. One idea that we put forward that you'll be able to see in the high-level diagram is making a connection through the rest of the park by continuing the sidewalk along First Street, just that connects with the parking area that's on Montecito Drive. But this is something that you could continue a path that aligns with the crosswalk on Tamalpais Drive and the stairs that lead into the park. And so you have this sort of longer corridor that allows people to walk between just the lower level, the actual park, and then the restaurants and shops that are above. Also thinking about opportunities to expand the park footprint for events. This could be temporary, or this could be something that's a little bit more permanent, such as an expanded plaza space, which would of course impact just the parking. So we know already that the parking lot is often cordoned off for special events so people can use the area. So this could be something that you end up doing. You add bollards to make it a little more official when you do it, and just set up the area so that it really accommodates that type of use. We also recommend supporting additional programming initiatives. So this includes food truck events and cultural events, as well as the age-friendly speaker series and holiday events. And then also one of our recommendations here that's important is to provide ADA compliant parking for events if you have blocked off the parking lot for use. Next slide, please. We recommend providing additional seating, including ADA compliant seating options where possible, and then considering opportunities to add on to the educational and historic signage that you already have. There are adjacent trails that kind of intersect with the park, so creating stronger connections are a recommendation we have. And then you'll see here, there's a few medium term, as I mentioned earlier, expanding the plaza space and adjusting the parking spaces as needed. We recommend adding a new bike rack, especially if you're thinking about creating those connections to the adjacent trails. And then this is just our blanket policy recommendation, just to upgrade the irrigation system to a more water efficient irrigation when appropriate.
So I think, Tim, as we take this to council, understanding the impact to the number of parking spaces, because that's always a bit of a piece. And then the new bathroom location, has that been thought about in terms of where we actually have plumbing, or is that just for design?
For Menke, Town Park.
For Menke.
I don't know if that was.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, from my memory, it was a potential, but you would need to do further investigation of your plumbing capabilities. Is that correct, David?
Yeah, and I don't believe there's sanitary sewer available out there. You're likely to have to tie into the street to provide sanitary sewer.
Yeah, there's a water fountain kind of further afield from that, kind of further down the path. I just wasn't.
Yeah, but that's not going to give you the capacity you need for a restroom.
Okay.
It would help to, for water supply, but the waste is not going to, and then you'll have to make that evaluation and make a decision whether you want to do an actual sewer connection, or you want to do a restroom that you can, have emptied and maintained like you do in many parks that don't have sanitary sewer. So if it's convenient, I think that's probably the preferred option. To make a connection to the street.
Can I quickly ask on page 66? can't quite visualize. I see where the potential new bathroom is, the orange square, and then sort of up towards the top of the page is another orange square.
That's the,
That's the bike rack.
it's like the old.
That's what it is. I could not.
Oh, yeah.
That's the
we
level
can
of
point that out.
All right, thanks
About
very
that,
much. I
yep.
just could not orient myself on that one.
I have no questions here. Anyone else have questions on Minky?
I just have a quick question, and I would propose, I guess it would come up also with a council meeting, is what the existing parking spaces, the exact number offered versus what's going to be proposed here, and then digging in a little bit, because I know that there's a lot across the street. I don't know if that's public parking or not. It is, and how many spaces there are roughly, to see if that is going to be a potential problem. Some people might balk at the idea of losing these highly coveted spaces in the town area, because it's a pretty popular place right now.
And when it's closed for events, that parking lot
Yeah.
sometimes
packed.
can get full, but like, once we've closed that parking lot for an event in Minky, like, we've lost those spaces anyway, but I think it's the day-to-day when there's not. And that
There's
may
a lot of
be,
new businesses that have opened up that are very successful.
Yeah.
Bringing Lighthouse and Burmatown and a lot of those there.
so it'd be a question of whether that expanded plaza space could be both parking space and not. And that's probably more of a project question, but I do think knowing how many spaces we would lose in this proposal, or how many are along that area, would be a useful thing to know. Agreed.
Good.
Great, thank you. Are
Where
there any other
do we
questions?
want to go
on
next?
Minky? Oh, great. Okay, Higgins Landing. So Higgins Landing, it's you'll see a lot of our recommendations are a bit longer term, just because the area currently this park is closed. The existing boathouse is used for storage for the Parks and Recreation Department. And so we do have just a few near-term recommendations, but more of them are potential long-term to look into more of a site design.
That graphic, sorry, that graphic is on page 56, if anyone wants to refer to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. So there are an existing bench and drinking fountain that are at this park. They're actually located at the bus stop that is adjacent. So our recommendation is just to add planting in already irrigated areas. You do have an irrigation system out there, and it's seems to be in working condition. It's just turned off. But we recommend adding benches as part of the Memorial Bench program, and also determining an appropriate size and location for the park name sign. Those are all the near-term and ongoing projects. For long-term projects, we recommend providing water access because looking into the potential for providing water access because currently Corte Madera does not have any sort of boat launch or water access. And so the recommendation that we have here is the potential to add concrete path, as well as new benches, and create an accessible seating and nature viewing area in this nice little space. We have a recommendation here to explore alternative options for water and dock access that would not necessarily be at this site. Because with further analysis, you might determine this might not be as feasible. We recommend providing a stairway for beach access, as well as an accessible ramp for beach access. And then also creating a new ADA accessible loading area that's adjacent to the bus stop. So it would be easier for somebody who needs it to be able to load to the area. We also recommend exploring potential for stronger connection to adjacent trails. If you are looking at the diagram, you'll see towards the bottom there is an existing trailhead that does connect to the rest of Corte Madera. And so this is an opportunity to really strengthen that connection. The policies that you see here, they're ones that you've seen before. Upgrading irrigation systems were appropriate, as well as decreasing the overall amount of turf as appropriate. The third policy that we have, it's to consider opportunities to provide public parking, including a potential joint use agreement. So this area does not have great street parking or that's directly accessible to Higgins Landing. Redwood High School is across the street, so there could be potential there, but otherwise there's not necessarily a lot of space to park if you're going to be accessing the beach. And I believe that's it for Higgins Landing.
And what's in the existing dockhouse today? It's just storage.
There are tents and games for 4th of July. There are some holiday decorations. There's some summer camp supplies and I think some plywood stuff from 4th of July. So it's a second storage for,
Okay.
yeah.
And is there a driveway right there?
There's a bus stop. There is no driveway.
There's no driveway going
No.
into the dockhouse. So there is nowhere to stop. And
You park in Redwood and walk across.
that's what I remember from our previous conversations about it. I love the idea of water access. And this feels like a distant, long-term thing because it's just such an awkward
Very big.
thing to get to. And I think that, to only do this one little piece as it connects into, I'm assuming Larkspur owns the other bit of that. Doing something with them to make that whole area feel more inviting rather than just our little corner. Maybe worth thinking about. So that we kind of get that whole, it's a long, busy road, but if we worked together, it may be a little bit more appealing than just having one nice dock on the corner. But I agree with that most of this should be long-term. Any other Higgins Landing? Great. Where to next?
Okay. Bayside Trail. So your existing amenities, you have a walking and biking path, as well as seating areas, and a really cool bike multi-tool. And so this is another park that does not necessarily have a lot of parking associated with it. So its strength is really just its connection to the adjacent trail. If you need to look at the diagram, it's on page 58. So our recommendations to address deficiencies, which are both near term and ongoing, to just repair and replace benches that are nearing the end of their life cycle. This is something you can consider or incorporating replacements from the Town Memorial Bench Program, as well as repairing and or replacing signage that's nearing the end of its life cycle. So there's, I believe, one sign at Bayside Trail that needs a little bit of love. Next, for our proposed amenities, we have a variety of near-term and medium-term. So we're looking at adding benches, adding a name sign, and then considering opportunities for implementing additional programs. So this includes maybe a local history walk and talk. We're also recommending providing new exercise equipment stations along the trail. And so this, you'll see these are broken out as they were at Town Park. This is something that I can update this page so it's a little clearer. What is going to be a new pathway versus what is going to be new equipment. Also providing additional seating areas along the trail. Providing wayfinding signage that just helps to connect Bayside Trail to the other sections of Corte Madera, because it does connect to other trailheads as well as the larger biking path. Next page, please. And then considering opportunities for adding educational signage. So this could include a nature trail or adventure loop because it's so close to just the wetlands that are nearby. This is an interesting opportunity. And then also considering opportunities for adding bike racks and offering additional bike related amenities to the trail. The policy that we've recommended is considering opportunities to provide public parking, including potential joint use agreements.
Tim, this part of the trail is both bike and walk, right? This is before we move to the bike lane on the road.
Correct.
Correct.
I feel like this Bayside Trail Park is maybe going to become more and more important as the housing near has been expanded, or at least the zoning around the Nugget and whatnot. Like I think this is going to end up getting a lot of use. So this is great.
Right. Any more questions on Bayside?
One thing, just because I know we've had some comments for, folks in the elderly community requesting fitness equipment. It might be a pretty tall ask having all of the exercise equipment spread out over a quarter mile with little parking. So I'm just something to kind of consider. I think
Yeah.
the suggestions that we've been hearing the community wants is like a central, what do they call it, a fitness pit or
Yeah.
something along those lines.
They had one in Town Park, but as we get to Cove, that would be probably the place to think about having a more central one. This would certainly be like, I'm cycling along and I hop off and I do some push-ups, which
Happens all the time.
which
Yeah.
may not serve seniors.
That's how I remember.
That's how you, yeah,
roll.
yeah.
Yeah, since there's no parking here, it made sense to make it more of a journey kind of thing where people are coming by here on a while they're out running or biking, and then using it more like a park course than a destination fitness center.
And I appreciate you bringing that up. All right, after Bayside, where do you want to go?
We're going to Cove.
Cove, let's do it.
And that's page 60. So one thing that you'll note if you're looking at the plan, the section that we have used in this diagram, it's the town's jurisdiction. So the town has the joint use agreement with Corte Madera or Larkspur Corte Madera School District. And so what you see here is just the town's jurisdiction. So the existing baseball court as well as the existing picnic area are not included in what we've reviewed. So to start with the existing amenities, we have the existing baseball field as well as lacrosse and soccer fields, the sand volleyball court, and then events programming, including movie nights. Our recommendations to address deficiencies that are ongoing and near term include removing and thinning vegetation around the parking lot just to increase visibility, repairing the asphalt parking lot as needed, and consider replacing excuse me, this is the asphalt paving, not the parking lot, and considering replacing the paving with concrete. We also recommend repairing and replacing picnic tables that are nearing the end of their life cycle, as well as replacing directive signage that's near the end of its life cycle. A bare recommendation is rehabilitating the athletic fields, including grading and drainage, as well as associated maintenance. This is something we've heard a lot about for both Cove and Town Park, is just improving the multi-sport fields. We also recommend including Cove parking lot in the 2023 parking lot repairs. This is something we have discussed internally, and so this is something we can potentially include. Just a note that this, I believe, is going to be part of the plan. If you go to the next page, please. Adding benches as well as a park name sign, as well as supporting additional programming initiatives, food truck events, cultural events, etc. We recommend adding bocce ball courts, and with the bocce ball courts, we recommend adding a group picnic area with shade structures, as well as evaluating interest in options to provide a community garden. So that would be a larger effort that would need to just survey the surrounding residents and see what the desire and need is. Our policy recommendations include upgrading the irrigation system, as well as decreasing the overall amount of turf where appropriate.
So I think that as we think about kind of balancing east side, west side needs, I think what we're missing on the east side is this fitness court that is central. On the west side, we don't have a community garden, which may or may, we can discuss whether that's needed on both. We've got bocce ball courts on both, and we've got pickleball and tennis, both east and west. Sports fields east and west. And so I don't know if there is a feasible location for a fitness court here in Cove Park, or whether that would mean replacing like the sand volleyball or swapping something out, but that may be something to consider, Tim, as we think about supporting that on the east side, if we think that that's important enough.
I think in that regard, also in comparing the amenities, the idea of having a nice gathering spot at Cove Park with tables and shade I think is a real high quality addition
Yeah.
that's lacking there.
I think we may need to investigate, like, what's more important, like, what do we need there? Maybe that's,
Yeah.
but I think to some of the public comment we had earlier tonight, are just making sure that we have addressed kind of the needs of the various parts of the community. It's just not as intuitive to me what our seniors need.
So one thing I'm noticing on the Cove Park, and I'm looking at page 60, if it's helpful. So there's sort of running parallel to the existing parking lot. There's a street there that sort of dead ends into the park. There's actually a little pathway that then connects. So all of that neighborhood over there to the left side on page 60. It's kids walk and bike, they come through there. And then what you might see is they either go right and hug along the parking lot, or they go left. What happens when they go left, frankly, left or right, is that they end up biking straight across the field because there's not a lot of connectedness. So there's two things I just kind of wanted to point out is one, I think we're missing a little bit of we're missing a very bad sidewalk. It's really
The one along the parking lot.
overgrown with roots. It actually comes up parallel from the parking lot and runs right to the Cove School. That's just
Yeah,
not
I remember
on
walking
here.
it.
And I don't know how to better articulate that because I'm that must be difficult for you to understand what I'm talking about. But there is definitely there's a sidewalk missing that I think badly needs repair. But just thought about the flow of kids and bikes and scooters coming from this neighborhood into the park, and then just biking across what I think we all agree is a multi-sport field that needs to be improved. And if we're going to spend money and time and energy on that, I think making sure that people aren't just riding right through it, that we address that, but so they have a better flow, they have somewhere else to go. It's that, I don't know if that was helpful. It was, because again, I'm drawing on mine, but I know you guys don't have the benefit of seeing what I'm doodling. Is that helpful, or do you have questions back for me on that?
No, I think that's a really helpful piece of feedback that it's something that we didn't necessarily observe when we were visiting, but having the benefit of your experience is helpful.
Any more questions on Cove? What do we have left? I think we've got Granada and Skunk Hollow.
Granada up first.
Great. And Granada is on page 53.
And 92.
Okay. So for Granada, we have the existing amenities of tennis courts and the picnic area. And the picnic area is actually something that we're interested in, or we recommend improving. So you'll see that here. In terms of addressing deficiencies in the near term, updating the picnic area is our next bullet point. And this includes an accessible concrete path for access. We recommend repairing and replacing the picnic tables that are at the end of their life cycle. And what you'll see in the, I'm looking at the, what you'll see is to the east side of the drawing, there's an area that's in blue, and that's where we recommend diverting runoff. So there is a large hill that's right next to Granada Park, since it's situated in the hills there. And if you are going to place anything in that area, whether it's a picnic area or something else, we highly recommend diverting that stormwater, potentially using a swale or another method. We recommend including Granada Park, the parking lot in the 2023 parking lot repairs program, including an accessible space, as well as adding benches and determining an appropriate size, position, and material for the park name sign. We recommend creating an enclosure for the existing portable restroom that is there. Also evaluating options for adding new pickleball facilities, while in the meantime striping existing courts for pickleball just to gauge resident response in the area. In terms of policy, these are the same that you've seen, upgrading the irrigation system, as well as decreasing the overall amount of turf.
Tim, have we had approved striping those courts? Are they striped?
They're not striped yet, no. hoping to be done it this month.
So my memory might be off, and it looks like it is because I'm looking at these two pictures, but I had in my mind that the parking area here had sort of like a large circular structure. Maybe it's that tree in the middle. And so there was mainly one or two, like very limited amount of parking there for the amount of actual concrete space that it suggests is parking here. Is that sounding familiar? And if so, can you guys let us know how many existing parking spots are there? And is there a way, since this is a little bit off from lots of folks, but on the east side in a tennis court, is there a way to maybe make the parking, well, just more parking spots so that people can use this more easily?
I believe there are 8 parking spots, but I'm not sure about a circular structure. Currently, there are 2 planted trees in the area.
Yeah, I think it's just a tree well.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. I like trees, but I just recall that for the amount of concrete, it seemed like not a lot of parking. And
Yeah,
we're
it
driving
isn't,
there.
it isn't really efficient. I'm wondering if there, does anyone know, is there more demand than you can provide parking at this point?
So I haven't seen there being a whole, like a line of people trying to get in, but in some ways, I think it's known to not have a lot of space. And so it's
Okay.
chicken or the egg. I'm not sure, but to the extent it's only about reconfiguring spots to even provide that illusion that there's a lot more space available, that might incentivize people to use this area more.
I think also in consideration, if pickleball courts were to be established, the demand would certainly increase. And even on a weekend morning, those tennis courts are full, and it's one thing to wait for the court, but waiting for a parking space to then wait for the court. I mean, I agree, it's a limiting factor there and something to consider, particularly if we're thinking about adding another amenity.
And there's not a really easy way to get to this walking.
No,
Yeah, no, not at all.
I mean, you certainly can park up on the hill and come down the street, but it's a schlep.
But adding 2 pickleball courts, we could potentially have 16 players if we've got everybody doing it, and then potentially 16 cars.
I think 8 spots is very deficient for adding those pickleball courts there. I'm there probably once every 2 or 3 weeks playing tennis, and I've never had a problem finding a parking spot. That's going to change.
With the pickleball, yeah.
Definitely change.
Okay. So more parking at Granada. Any other Granada questions? Great. Skunk Hollow, is that our last one?
Yep.
So
believe so.
64, the photos.
Skunk Hollow, we have fewer recommendations since there has been so much new work on it. The play structure is very new. I believe it was November 2020 that it was put in. So our existing amenities, we have the playground and the picnic area. There's also an existing lawn that we recommend you keep. Our first near-term deficiency is just to replace the poisonous oleanders that are there. You can see in the new diagram a row of new shrubs to the north side of the park. Those would replace the oleander plants that are there. Our proposed amenities include adding benches, adding a name side, and then a medium term recommendation is to provide shade for the picnic area. So there were several trees that were growing that were actually removed. And so the area now, the picnic area has less shade than it used to.
I have no questions.
So I was going to suggest, but then I'm reading the words and it sounds like that's already happened, but those 3 benches that are along near the proposed shade structure, I was going to say, well, they should be connected with a pathway, but I don't see it on the diagram, but I do see it in print in blue with an ADA path. Sounds like that is something that you've envisioned.
Yes, it looks like there is a connecting path, so this may be, I'll take another look at this diagram just because something does feel off about there not being that connection. But there are a few benches that do not necessarily connect to the overall path.
Great. I guess the only other thing, if we're talking about paths and connecting is, like, I don't know what's there, I can't remember if it goes all the way around in a circle, because boy, we know kids like to just like in a circle. And that might help with, you know, if it doesn't connect all the way around, it might be a helpful thing to do so.
Okay. And then you have a few pages just on the facilities and the buildings that have the various expectations on expense. Do we want to go through those this evening, Tim?
I mean, I think it's really on facility. We can. I don't have that on my slide, but I can pull it up. David, what's your thoughts on that for the next step of
Yeah,
this?
I could do a quick summary, just see if there's any discussion points or questions.
I've got to find that. Sorry.
I can share it if that works.
Sure. So this isn't a lot of new information, but we did kind of finalize the summaries for these, which are new to you. But all of the information was presented previously. I'll just start with Town Park. That existing restroom building at Town Park, it does have quite a few deficiencies, including accessibility. And given the fact that it's not a very flexible structure, it's concrete, it's very hard to remodel. It is very hard to renovate and make look new. And there are a lot of concerns about security because it does not have doors. So our recommendation, looking at what it would take to renovate this facility and address the deficiencies, is that a replacement modular facility would probably serve you a lot better and meet your needs for lower maintenance, because this building is going to forever be a maintenance problem the way it's constructed, and it's going to be very expensive to reconfigure and remodel. So that's our current recommendation for this, is just to replace it with a modular facility similar to that's being placed in the park now. Community center, we really looked at historically the way that this had been proposed to be renovated or remodeled. And I would characterize the remodel that was studied as what we call a heavy touch remodel and expansion. It had a lot of reconfiguration of the existing building. And it's a quite expensive way to remodel and expand this building. You can see the two costs that we've come up with here is a heavy touch remodel and expansion at about 14 million, and a light touch remodel and expansion of about a little over 9 million. And the big difference there is with the light touch remodel, you're trying to make the best use of the existing building without completely rearranging and reconstructing it. Because once you do that, you're really talking about a tear down, because the costs associated with a heavy touch remodel on an old structure like that is not a terrific investment. You're going to spend a tremendous amount of money updating what are considerably old bones and an old foundation and old systems that are going to continue to have maintenance problems and so forth, even with a heavy touch remodel. So our recommendation is that if you consider a remodel and expansion, the light touch remodel approach is probably going to be your better friend in terms of how you do this. And that's going to rely on the expansion part accommodating any new program areas. So we've kind of laid it out that way and priced it that way, where we think you can actually accommodate some of the more significant program areas that were called for in the survey and in the needs assessment. With a light touch approach to the building and an expansion that really is designed to meet those needs.
Tim, the only thing I'd say here is that we went through this whole question of like renovate versus rebuild with town hall. And so that's going to be pretty fresh on people's minds. I feel like 10 million was what we were talking about originally budgeting for town hall. Is that about right for a total tear down? So the idea that I might be off.
I think that's right. I wasn't directly
That
involved
was
in
correct.
that.
That was several years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Prices
so
got
just kind of
bloated.
thinking about these estimates as being renos versus a whole new facility, I think that's going to be an interesting question that I'm sure they will be.
It is, and really the difference is you get a 50-year building with a replacement building that is going to be much lighter on ongoing maintenance and is going to meet your needs and serve your needs a lot better. So generally, the light touch remodel and expansion is an economical way to get the space you need. But if you can't do that and you end up with a really extensive remodel of this existing building, it's going to push you into a replacement scenario pretty quickly. And
Okay.
we did provide replacement cost for the existing building. We could, I mean, if it's something that we need to include here, we could actually cost a replacement at a larger scale to meet your needs. We didn't price that, but we certainly could, if that makes any sense to you guys. It's going to be a big number. It's going to be more than the 14 million, but you would be a brand new building. All new.
Just given what we did with City Hall, if it's not a ton of trouble to add it might be helpful, but like, I wouldn't.
Sure.
To put it in context.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, it's very helpful. And I'm going to make a recommendation on the next building similarly. So I was anticipating this might be helpful to provide that. So I'll put that together.
Thank you.
And then not much more on the modular buildings. They're going to last, another 10, maybe 15 years, and they're probably going to be the absolute end of their life. And you should be looking at either having the school replace those buildings and then renew a lease, or potentially going to have to find a home for these programs. So that's something to think about in the long term. The dance studio, it's meeting a current need, but it's not a very good space for any kind of broader adult programming. It's too small, and the accessibility concerns in that building with that upstairs loft and restroom are really problematic. We identified those deficiencies and we provided means of addressing them, but it's a pretty substantial project. And so the accessibility upgrades at the dance studio are about $137,000 to try and get that into some kind of reasonable compliance with a ground floor restroom. The Park Madera Center 508 Tamalpais structure, the current Petco building. We evaluated this because it was identified as just a possibility for meeting some of the indoor recreation needs that were spelled out in the survey and rated very high in the prioritization. And there weren't any, good fits for providing built facilities for indoor sports. The way we characterize this is that this space, because of its long span nature, its higher ceilings, it could be used for indoor sports. And it would be of high value to be able to provide that kind of programming. But it's not a gym. It doesn't have a high enough ceiling to really qualify as a gymnasium for competition basketball, competition volleyball, sports that require that height. But you can do, and you could consider it an indoor training facility for those sports. And you can certainly qualify as indoor pickleball, but even a pickleball guru will tell you that the ceiling's too low for lobbing in pickleball. So there are limitations to this structure, but it would be of tremendously high value to have an indoor training facility. But you cannot characterize this as a competition facility because the ceiling height limitation would really preclude competitive, truly competitive use. I think folks would benefit and value it enormously for its potential, but I just have to be really clear with that caveat. One of the things that I was thinking I might be able to provide you is a cost and it hasn't come up, so this is new information, but if you were to just simply say this is the right spot for a true recreation facility, you could potentially replace this building with a true gymnasium in this location. The more we looked at it, the more we understood its value in terms of location and its adjacency to the community center and the park and the available parking, and there were, you know, its ability to knit into the existing recreation uses at the park and at the school. This location seemed ideal. So if it made any sense to anyone, I could provide a cost for new construction of a purpose-built gymnasium in this location.
The other alternative is becomes a fitness center, right? Like you could put
Yep.
weights and.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and that's actually definitely part of this program. The way we characterize it as an adaptive reuse, those elements are in here and they would be provided for. What is just the only, you know, the caveat is that they're indoor sports, like court sports, was identified as a real need in the needs assessment. And while this provides training facility for those uses, it doesn't provide a competitive gymnasium.
Because we did have a lot of we talked about the outdoor fitness courts and a lot of the survey uses, but we didn't necessarily talk about a gym. I don't know if
indoor sports courts was a
court, but not necessarily like a workout center.
Oh,
but I don't know if we asked explicitly for a workout center.
I think when it's raining, you're going to find them wanting to come indoors. And even hot, you know. So I in some of those surveys, you kind of have to read between the lines, and there was a lot of talk about fitness. I'll have to go back and look and see if it was characterized specifically as indoor fitness, but it just seemed like an absolute natural fit if you've got this space to be providing indoor fitness areas.
Facility.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, and this is kind of backtracking a little bit, but what was ranked very, very high on the community was the community
Pool.
in the pool was the pool.
Yeah.
What square footage did we say that you need for something like that?
Well, so this, I mean, I think it's the kind of pool you're looking for was always an interesting question, right? Do we need a lap pool, an athletic pool, a pool for lessons? Is it a splash around pool? So 10,000 square feet, could you have an above ground outdoor pool that's a splash pool in that spot?
You would likely have kind of one or the other, either a lap pool or a play pool. And it's very hard to do them both in a small footprint.
Is right. So we, one or the other.
And unfortunately, the activity pool, the play pool, pays for the lap pool.
Right.
Which is, lap pools unfortunately are real money losers. It's just impossible to generate enough revenue to pay for them.
And I don't know if that, there's the indoor outdoor and then there's the water table question, because I think this is pretty low lying. And so it would almost need to be an above ground.
I thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that we decided to sort of
Table
put this to
pools.
bed.
Just because it was.
Because the cost was more prohibitive than anything.
The ongoing maintenance
Yeah.
was in the millions.
Yes.
Yeah, in the analysis, we did consider the costs of both construction and of ongoing maintenance and its revenue potential, and it did not score very well in those respects.
And I think we did get feedback that people want all the pool things, not just one of the pool things. And
I will say, just for the sake, the idea of should it ever be feasible to create an actual gymnasium is very enticing. There's very much a shortage of gym space in Central Marin. And I know simply because of my son plays basketball and I've seen them all because we're at different hours of the night and day because you got to get in there. So it's, should the time come that we're really considering whether this is a renovation or a replacement, because that also can be somewhat, I don't know how, not necessarily a significant revenue generator, but you rent gym space.
Yeah.
So something to consider.
So I think it would be helpful if we had both this as the adaptive reuse, but the full remodel
Yeah,
cost.
just off the cuff, it's in the ballpark of 9 million.
Not ballpark in the court.
You know.
Yeah, somewhere in the court of. Perfect. All right. I think that takes us through all of the pages.
Yeah, yeah, it does. Thanks.
So we've given a lot of feedback.
And I had one follow-up question. when-
Yes, okay, yes.
So you had mentioned about listing this when it goes to council as prioritize facilities in certain order. We really haven't done that before. And we're gonna keep in mind, this will be presented in two parts. It'll have the Cove part, and it'll have everything else. So just some direction on how you want it prioritized by biggest square footage or.
Why is Cove separated?
So Cove has to be separate because the council member lives within the boundaries of Cove, so it has to be two separate presentations. One on Cove and then one on everything else. And Rebecca can.
She'll need to recuse herself from
Correct.
discussion on the item, so it's easier and cleaner if
Got
they're
it.
just separate discussion items.
What do you mean within the bounds?
Within a certain number of feet away from it, if it's within 500 or 600.
So I think just in terms of, as this goes to council, it's a lot of information to take in. So I would start with kind of Town Park, Minky Park, and go through, it's the order in which we talked about them today.
Okay.
Mostly, but it was not the order of the papers set up. So I would prioritize like Town Park, the big investments first. I would put kind of like Higgins Landing and Skunk Hollow at the bottom towards the end.
Like, so when people's attention span is
Right.
present,
Yeah.
I don't think Higgins is the place to.
Right.
It's
town and
can be a little
it's-
distracting.
it's-
But more so, I think it was as you saw us using it, right? We're like, okay, where's
Yep.
the map, like all of Town Park information.
Yep.
In one place, because I kept being like, wait, what page? And because I'm much more of a visual, like a map rather than a list. Other people are,
List versus maps, yeah.
take it in differently, but just having them all looped together so you're not flipping back and forth.
Teeing them up that they're not having to prioritize, and we are not recommending all of these things all right now. That we recognize that, or misstep on.
Yeah.
And then the idea of medium term, long term, kind of being able to see the budgets that way. I think will be helpful, and letting them know that medium term, long term is based off of the priorities that we heard from the town. More than any other kind of impending doom of something that it's,
Yeah.
but that's how we used the priorities from the surveys.
Perfect.
To do that. I'm assuming we need a motion and a vote here
Is anybody-
to,
Sorry. Maybe waiting on.
Public comment.
oh. Thank you.
The public has sat through
Public is sat.
the
has sat and listened
discussion
patiently.
and the question. So if there are no more
If there are. is there-
questions from the commission, I recommend opening for comment and then bringing it back for discussion and direction.
Yes, let's please open for public comment. Do we have any raised hands or email public comment?
No attendees in the audience at the moment, and we have two raised hands online so far. I'll go ahead and see, bring the timer back into the meeting. Just one moment, please. That works. Okay, and then I will call on Patty Stolier. Patty? the floor is yours.
Thank you. I have two comments and three questions. One is there was the overall goal seemed to be, was it comprehensive in assessing everything? And there was no question about, do we need a senior center or an intergenerational center? So there's no possible way that people answered, yes, we do. So that's a big glaring omission. In terms of the swimming pool, I think the fact that it was the number one thing and everybody in town knows that, it would be good to make a comment about how you looked into it and why it's not going anywhere. I'm really confused how Strawberry can have lap pool, a children's pool, a hot tub, and all these other things when we have like a zillion times more dollars than they do, and I don't understand how we can't afford it. The under existing amenities in Town Park, at the beginning, it was 0,000, and the end of the page was 1.7 million. It looked like that was just for turf, and I just wanted to make sure that that was regarding just turf. And the bathroom, the existing bathroom in the park, I don't understand why it can't be pressure washed and painted as a Band-Aid until it's replaced or fixed or some improvement, because it really is an eyesore. And then the benches, I'm really glad that you put the memorial benches throughout the area, but is there a cost for the person who is purchasing the bench? And I didn't see that mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Have additional routine.
And then we have another public comment from James Jordan. Mr. Jordan, you should be able to unmute yourself. Mr. Jordan, are you able to unmute? Or you are unmuted, we're not, oh, now you're muted again. We are still not hearing you. I'm not sure if you, oh, I think you might try to rejoin the meeting. In the meantime, let me check for emailed public comment. I know we received one just before the meeting started that I had not been able to print because it was right before the meeting started. Have an email from Clark Miller, and I will start my timer. And it says, for item 6B on tonight's Parks and Recreation Commission agenda, on behalf of over 1,000 children and families affiliated with the Corte Madera Football Club, we offer our strong support for the proposed rehabilitation of the east and west athletic fields, including grading and irrigation improvements. While there have been significant improvements to these fields since the spring, thanks to Public Works' concerted efforts, there are still a number of inherent deficiencies with the existing design, which prevent the fields from being of a caliber commensurate with the other club facilities within our league. Specifically, current challenges with drainage, slope and undulations, and turf composition, including invasive weeds, make for a constant uphill battle. Starting fresh with a professionally designed field, including an engineered sub-base for proper drainage, a site-specific turf seed mix, and water-efficient irrigation, will address existing field deficiencies and establish Town Park as one of the top field complexes in Marin for soccer, baseball, softball, lacrosse, and rugby. Lastly, to maximize this investment, we strongly urge the sufficient maintenance funds be allocated to keep the fields in top condition. Your master plan effort has been thorough, extensive, and inclusive, and we appreciate the time and energy that has been dedicated to it. Thank you for your consideration of prioritizing the rehabilitation of the east and west athletic fields as a critical element for the benefit of the broader community. Best regards, Clark Miller. And that will be uploaded and emailed to council and made available to the public. I am not seeing any additional public comment, but I'm looking to see if Mr. Jordan was able to rejoin the meeting. Let me just check a couple more things. No, he was experiencing technical difficulties, so I just wanted to give him a moment to try to get back into the meeting. But I'm not I'm not seeing him yet. I don't know if you have discussion and maybe we can reopen public comment if he's able to rejoin. But I'll check my email to see if he sends a public comment email as well.
Any more discussion from the commissioners related to draft master plan? Good. Any questions?
I don't know if I'm like unearthing things that were already discussed.
No, that's okay.
I'm just trying to orient myself to, we originally, I imagine, went about soliciting feedback from the community, and that is informing how we're designing.
Yes.
So I'm looking at this program prioritization matrix with the lens of, did we include everything we're supposed to include? I guess what counts as this outdoor adventure area, and did we address that? And then I guess I'm still a little bit confused about the public swimming pool, because it's the highest community priority, but and then also highest potential revenue. So I guess these are all things where we've dug in deeper and realized it's not going to generate enough revenue to get us the swimming pool.
So, so I think, yes, so I think the outdoor adventure facility, that's what it was described in as the survey. So I think that there was a lot of room for interpretation as to what people meant by that. So I think that was somewhat unclear. But I think it was imagined that it was some kind of like bouldering wall, maybe. The swimming pool, we ran a couple of subcommittees in the spring investigating pools. What we learned about the various pools locally is that they run, post-construction, run at a deficit year on year, that there is very little cost recovery of running a pool due to kind of the staffing, maintenance, staffing, regulatory issues that come with a pool. And so given kind of the size and scope of that being as large as it was, we tabled the continued exploration for the time being in terms of a feasibility perspective.
And let me add to that, that there's also the issue of we don't yet have the land. Like, where would we put it? Like, would be procuring land. Like, it was a tall order. It wasn't just about maintaining once built, like Strawberry or whatnot.
It was, do we have the land to dedicate to it?
The last thing on this top 10 list was climbing, bouldering walls. I'm just trying to think about, like, did we capture all these things?
Capture all of these things? Yes.
That was the only other one I did not hear us discuss at all.
The climbing and bouldering walls were actually included in the renovation and adaptive reuse of the pet club.
Okay.
So what that was considered to be an indoor opportunity, and I think I mean, there also could be outdoor opportunities, but we struggled to find an appropriate location.
I would almost find it helpful, maybe because I'm not very sports oriented, to know what we define as all these indoor sports.
Yeah, unfortunately, we weren't given a lot more detail than you. So, but it was called indoor sports courts, which we typically refer to as there's a sport court standard, and then you're talking about indoor versions of your typical outdoor sports with tennis and pickleball, volleyball, badminton, basketball are predominantly, but then you've also can accommodate other indoor sports that aren't necessarily courts, like indoor soccer, and there's quite a few creative sports opportunities for kids that rec departments can provide in that similar kind of space.
We currently partner with Neil Cummins and use their gym quite often. We want to run programming indoor, and that's one of the more obvious places. So something that can be basketball, indoor soccer, volleyball, whatever else they do in there.
And that gym right now is allocated to school until 3 o'clock. And then after that's programmed from us until 10 o'clock some nights, 6-7 days a week. It's very busy.
Rebecca, is there anyone trying to reach us via public comment?
Not at the moment. Mr. Jordan has not been able to rejoin the meeting as far as I can tell, but I did let him know that if he can send an email public comment, I'd be happy to share that with the commission and the public. I'm not seeing any other raised hands, and let me just check the email public comments one more time. Just want to give everyone an opportunity to be heard. And I am not seeing any additional emailed public comment.
So I think Patty's comment and then followed up by your questions, Lisa, are sort of well taken about the pool, like that maybe that needs to be something that's sort of spelled out as to why it's not there. We did a lot of work and dug in, you know, certainly wasn't something we ignored, but it might not, if someone's picking this up fresh, it might not be that clear, so.
And I think that there's did we do enough to address the types of indoor spaces that we need? And I think that there is, whether we need a dedicated space by age group or whether we have created enough spaces through this, I think is potentially that one last lens to be considered. And I think that's somewhat related to if we renovated the community center and that was part of the master plan, that would give us a lot more opportunity to have meeting spaces for different groups in a more flexible way. And I feel like that is a little bit of the outstanding question marks we have kind of as we think about this. We have a lot of outdoor picnic areas and places to meet up, but without that facilities piece, that may be the one thing in terms of meeting rooms, indoor spaces are missing. Given the hour, let's see how we can do. So we need a motion to approve moving forward with the draft to council with recommended edits that I don't have to list, right? With recommended edits.
That's correct.
Okay.
We can make sure that we heard you correctly. Both of us took notes. We've got the recording. But yes, unless you there's anything you want specifically spelled out, we can make sure that the edits that we noted match with what you noted.
So thank you all to our team of consultants.
Yeah.
So can I get a motion to approve this draft to go to council with edits?
I move that this draft goes to cancel with the noted edits.
Is there a second? Excellent. Can we get a vote, please, Rebecca?
Commissioner Ellison, Commissioner Koenig,
Yes.
Commissioner Bodeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Rose,
Yes.
Vice Chair Charlie,
Yes.
and Chair Miles.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes.
All right. Moving on from business items, staff updates and commissioner reports.
Thank
Tim.
you all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll give you a couple quick updates. First, fall activity guide went to the printer, should be ready in about 2 weeks. You have the school menus in front of you. Those are distributed to the schools when school started. Obviously, you know, goal for parents to find classes and programs, and they've been filling up very quickly, which is good to see. Friday was our second outdoor movie. It was a beautiful night at Town Park, well attended. We piggybacked off the Corte FC picnic. It was a great event. We almost had a small crisis when the guy who brought the movie didn't bring his inflatable blower to blow up the machine. But luckily we had a spare in the barn, so we just plugged it in real quick and it worked. So that was good. But everybody had fun. There was good music, good outdoor games, face painting, popcorn, and partnered with Neil Cummins PTO to sell some snacks and some swag. And everybody had a good time. And like I said, it was a gorgeous night. I was in the short sleeves the whole night, which was great. Active Older Adults on Sunday, August 20th, Age Friendly Corte Madera held their non-agenarians event with the Park and Rec Department, which are people who are 90 to 99. There were 16 of them. They have the first time they've had this event back since COVID. They had the kind of drop off virtual. Oh, sorry. We had one, say it correctly. Centenarian. But they had they gave speeches to each person. They each got a certificate. They had some snacks and they took a nice group photo. So it was nice to have the event back in person as being the kind of drop offs that they had at people's doorsteps previously during COVID. Corte Madera FC is in full swing. 922 total people currently registered. about 631 and about 291 in comp. It'll fluctuate a little bit, but I mean, if you go to the park right now, it's full and rec hasn't even started yet. So that's good. Corte Madera Children's Center in full swing with school starting. They have 58 first to fifth graders, 15 kindergarten full days, and 5 half days. And they are offering this year some non-school day options. So when there's teacher work days or there's Thanksgiving break or midweek or spring week, they are offering camp for those people who need camp care for that week. And they finally made some purchasing. We hadn't bought new tables or chairs since we took over the center. So we bought some new tables and chairs, a new air hockey machine. Looks great. Some new fresh amenities in the facility. After school enrichment classes, there's already 660 people enrolled between Neil Cummins and Cove and a few classes there, which is great. That's a good, strong number to start off the fall class. Adult with disabilities, they had a dance early summer with 131 total people. They had a party night with 24. Their Monday sports night reigns about 30 people. And their Corte Madera with Champion Lions has about 30 clients per month. Looking forward, our next movie, Friday, September 15th, outdoor at Cove Park. We're showing Luca, again, partnering with the PTO to sell some snacks and have some fun. Sunday, September 24th, the SF Academy Orchestra is playing a free concert in Town Park at 3 o'clock. They're going to be on the berm of the East Field, so we're encouraging families to come out and bring a picnic and listen to some free music in the park. Hopefully it's a nice day. And then looking ahead in October already, Oktoberfest right on the corner at Menke Park. The Park and Rec is going to partner again to provide some activities and games during the day for those parents and kids. October 20th, pumpkin carving at the community center, which was a huge hit. And then we're bringing back a family dance, October 28th, Halloween family dance kind of themed to kind of bring back the whole family dance experience. The last thing is that Steve, myself, and Lucas did some time on Town Park baseball field. There was a really awful lip in the baseball field, and the Public Works got us 16 yards, actually got 20 yards of dirt and fill. And Steve and I went out there with Lucas and leveled it out. It looks great. There's no more lip. There's no more safety hazard. People's really happy. Sorry, 3 of us and Frank from Adult Softball program was out there, so it looks great, and everybody's super happy. So
Thank you.
that's my update.
Thank you. All right. Updates from the town council meetings.
Oh, that's me. And you guys would be delighted to know that there was nothing relevant to Parks and Rec in August.
So disappointed.
Great conversations about housing and whatnot. Lots long and interesting, but nothing directly on point for us.
All right. Thank you. The Executive Advisory Committee has not met. Individual commissioner updates. I'll jump in and say I've had multiple people reach out via phone and text to say that the grass looks great in the park. So people are very excited about it. They're excited about it from, I see it from my house to like, I hear it's better for the field. So I know that Public Works and Parks and Rec have been working really hard. Still more work to do, but it's looking good. So excited on that. And then also just another kudos on the Friday family movie night. We're learning that if we combine events, we get a lot better results. So kind of continuing to partner with local groups to make things amplified is really successful. Any other commissioner updates? No, welcome, Lisa.
Yeah.
All right, routine and other matters. We don't need to, no votes, no closing. Any future agenda items? September, we have commission goals.
Very quickly, and I don't know if it's even possible, but it's something I've mentioned before, it's come up again here, is how do we get more senior involvement on our commission? Feedback I've gotten is 2 years is too long. Help driving because we have in person, but I would love to actually maybe chat about that a little bit more formally if we had time this next time or sometime in the future.
Do we want to make an agenda item or an ad hoc subcommittee?
I think we could talk about it openly, but and agendize it so that other people maybe could call in and provide their recommendations, like what's the barrier? So
yeah,
I that would be my vote.
Okay, all right. Address it, I think so for September future meeting, addressing seniors and making sure we have senior representation. Beyond just the dedicated group that calls in regularly. So then I think we can pass on it for ad hoc subcommittee if we need to. We have as agenda item. Reminder that Commissioner Charlie, you're up for September.
Guys can't wait.
All right, if there is nothing.
Wait.
You
Oh,
guys, sorry.
so-
Thank you, Chair Miles. With that, that section, the town council meetings, we don't necessarily need to address this at this point, but I did want to point out, since Lisa is new to the commission, what the purpose of that section is that we have assigned council meetings. We have 2 council meetings a month on the 1st and 3rd Tuesdays of the month, and we assign a commission member to observe either in person or online, or watch the video of the meeting after the fact, and then report back to the Parks and Rec Commission at the next meeting if what items, if any, were discussed that are of relevance to the work of the commission. August and September, we only had 1 meeting each month, so that is why Emily is on to.
That's not true. It's because you guys like my.
And then we slotted you in February for now. March is TBD, with the expectation that we will have a 7th member by then.
Our next regular meeting of Parks and Recreation Commission is scheduled for Wednesday.
Do we want to discuss that again? This was discussed back in January, when you set your meetings for the year. And at that
Yes.
point, the meeting on Monday, September 25th conflicted with
The Jewish holidays.
Yom Kippur. And the commission discussed several options for rescheduling that meeting, involving another Monday, another day during the week, possibly combining meetings. But does Wednesday, September 27th still work?
I will not be here. But you all are welcome to carry on.
Would we have a quorum for that meeting?
We need 5 for a quorum.
4.
Sarah,
We
should-
four.
Sarah should be here.
I will be here.
Okay. We should have, does it work for staff?
I won't be able to be here, but Lorena Barrera will be able to be here in my absence.
We're not going out together.
No, I have another meeting commitment that night for the county.
Unless there's a proposal to change it.
Just, we hadn't checked in since
That's
January when this calendar was set, so we
I
figured.
think it's hard
To organize.
Try to
around
find a
some-
date now. I would
Yeah.
keep it.
All right, so we are scheduled special date, Wednesday, September the 27th, 2023. And with that, we are done.
Thanks.
Well done, team.
Yeah.
Trying to keep me, Rebecca. Just trying to get something.